So, reports say Mykhailo Mudryk is already unhappy at Chelsea. We're going to go ahead and put this in the "it was only a matter of time" column. Let's dive into this one because it's a little complicated. It's stoppage time here at Pints and Punditry. Alright, so the reports are saying that Mykhailo Mudryk is already unhappy at Chelsea, and, you have to take these with a grain of salt. There's probably a little truth to it, but not nearly as much as the media is running with. I mean, right now, nobody looks happy at Chelsea. Would you be happy at Chelsea? Graham Potter looks miserable, players look miserable, Todd Boehly looked absolutely miserable over the weekend, like he didn't know what he got into and is rethinking his purchase. It just isn't a fun place right now. But these are the sorts of things that happen and are almost inevitable if you've been paying attention to sports for any period of time when you do a lot of the things Chelsea's done lately, and of course when you lose. Losing is always the catalyst for this stuff. These sorts of stories rarely happen on winning teams, and if they do, the teams just say, fine, be done with this guy, we don't need him, we're winning. So these are the sorts of things that manifest upon losing. And there's probably a grain of truth to this, but not nearly as much as the media would have you believe. These stories aren't just fabricated out of thin air, where the media sees a losing team and says, hey, let's pick a guy and say he's miserable. No, it's not that made up. But it's probably a he said, she said sort of thing. The rumor mill, the whisper game gets going, and it's blown wildly out of proportion. And this one has already been discredited by Mudryk and by Chelsea. But that doesn't mean there isn't a layer of truth to it. You have to remember, and this is one of the other key variables here, Mudryk seemed like he was signed, sealed, delivered to Arsenal, and he was even speaking out in a lot of pro-Arsenal ways leading up to what seemed to be an inevitability. And then all of a sudden, Chelsea out of nowhere with this huge payday, and he's Chelsea bound. Now, what role did the player play in that? We have seen this before, where a young player doesn't get as much say as he should in his ultimate destination. And these things are dictated by the selling club and by agents, and it's money driven. So did Mykhailo Mudryk really want to go to Chelsea in the first place? We don't know. I don't know. There's only a handful of people that really know. But boy, it sure didn't seem that way. So if there was somebody who was going to be the odds-on favorite to be the unhappy person, sure seemed like the guy who all along wanted to go to a different club. The other problem, and I've talked about this a little bit, and I'm going to continue to bang this drum, is when you're throwing money around like Chelsea is, and not just the amounts of money, but the amount of people they're throwing it at, right? When you are acquiring as many players as they have, particularly mid-season in a winter, in a January transfer break, there just flat out isn't enough playing time to go around. And Mudryk, obviously being one of the really big money and big name guys, has gotten some playing time, but it hasn't worked out right away, and now he didn't play over the weekend. Raheem Sterling was back. Hey, he's no slouch, right? And so there's no room for error for these players on this Chelsea squad. And the star players are going to see that. And they're going to say, hey, I need to have a run of bad form. I need to have a bad game or two and not lose my spot and be able to play my way back into it. And they're not going to get that at Todd Boehly's fantasy camp. That's just not what's going to happen here. He's already plotting to see what players he can sign to replace the guys who didn't immediately come in and score. And nobody has scored, so it's everybody. And so when you act the way Chelsea has acted over the Todd Boehly era, you're going to have this sort of unhappiness and dissent throughout the locker room. On top of it, Graham Potter feels like he's on the chopping block. It's a little surprising he hasn't been sacked yet. And so players are now starting to say, well, I don't care about him. He's not going to be my manager that much longer anyway. I'm thinking about myself. And it just sort of becomes this cesspool of selfishness and negativity, and that's where these types of rumors come from. So, at the end of the day, this is probably a lot of nothing, but it is incredibly unsurprising that these sorts of rumors have already started to manifest at Chelsea, which right now is just a cesspool of negativity. And it's not shocking, really, that Mudryk, a young player who seemed like he wanted to go to another club, is one of the first ones who these rumors are flying around about. And it's not a knock on the kid. Maybe he didn't want to be there in the first place. And maybe it's totally made up, but my guess is there is a little something behind this, and we're going to hear a lot more of it. What do you think? Make some comments below. Follow us on Twitter, Total FIFA CM. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. And let's hear what you have to say. Is it total BS? Is there something to it? Is Chelsea just a disaster right now? That one's tough to argue with. Thanks as always for joining us on Stoppage Time here at Pints and Punditry. This is Total FIFA Career Mode.